Now, they're called Trekkies, or the purest among them like to call themselves Trekkers. Either way, some of the wealthier ones are in New York this week for an unprecedented Star Trek auction. Starting on Wednesday, Christie's will put 1,000 Star Trek items up on the block, timed to coincide with the 40th anniversary of the original television series going to air.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission.
Oh, it just gets the hair up on the back of your neck just hearing those famous words. It's a familiar opening sequence for Star Trek, seen by countless millions across the globe, of course, over the years. And here to discuss all things Star Trek is Eric Watts. He's Director of Star Trek Programming at Atlanta's DragonCon, an annual science fiction and fantasy convention, and very much a dedicated Trekkie. May I greet you in Klingon, Kashtanuk. I've been doing my research. on the internet. Kashtanuk, which I believe is Klingon for what's happening.
And peace and long life to you as well.
Excuse me?
And peace and long life to you as well.
Oh, indeed, indeed. Thank you. I thought you were giving me some Klingon there. What is it that makes grown men, and presumably a few women, remain Trekkies 40 years after this show got its launch?
Well, if I had a quick answer to that, I'd be a very rich man. It's a lot of things to a lot of different people. For me, it's given me an opportunity to share my passion for a television series, what started out as a television series, with a lot of other fans that share the same passion. For me, as a child, it was the big adventure, the over-the-top characters, and the wonderful special effects. That was when I was in junior high school. As I grew up, I began to appreciate the messages that were in the scripts more so. Back in the 1960s, when the original series premiered, many of the scripts were metaphors for issues that were relative of the day that were not being addressed on any other television series. And certainly let's not forget the groundbreaking diversity that was found in the Star Trek cast. For instance, you know, across the networks, Gilligan's Island, how much diversity did you see on Gilligan's Island, whereas you had a multinational and multi-ethnic crew, which was unprecedented for its time in the late 60s on American network television.
So are you suggesting that the Star Trek crew in some ways was a liberal response? Is this what it was to the Cold War, which was then at its height?
Well, it was more of a reaction to the Vietnam War at the time. The introduction of the character of Pavel Chekhov in the second season, who played a Russian, that was an homage to the Cold War at the time, with the expectation that by the time of the 23rd century that such relations would be harmonious throughout the planet Earth. And that is what has made Star Trek such an appealing franchise for so many of the fans, is that it was an optimistic vision of the future, as opposed to the more darker, grittier futures that most other science fiction shows presented at the time.
All of which is an extraordinarily eloquent explanation as to why Star Trek gripped people, at least some people, in the 1960s. Why is it still gripping people in 2006?
It's still delivering the same messages that it did then. With the premiere of Star Trek The Next Generation in 1987 and the subsequent series, it's still delivering the same messages. It's still delivering the grand adventures. It's still delivering the heroes and the villains that we were originally introduced to in the 1960s, but they've been reinvented and reincarnated time after time, and the fans have stuck with it. And as the decades pass, new fans are born and grow up, and they grow up with their own series. I'm a child of the 70s. I grew up with the original series. Folks who are younger than I am consider The Next Generation and the series after it to be their Star Trek. So it's as enduring a franchise as the generations of humanity itself.
And it's had many spin-offs, of course. I think you've got a couple of things there to show us as Star Trek has spawned all manner of things for people to buy.
Well, the merchandising of Star Trek is absolutely huge. I have just a couple of things here. This is one of my favorites. It's a Klingon teddy bear. Klingons, of course, have come to some degree dominate Star Trek fandoms. The portion of fandom that embraced the Klingon way of life have become huge in Star Trek fandom. Trek Track is a part of a DragonCon, which is an annual convention here in Atlanta that I help run. run. I'm very proud of it. It's in its 15th year now. And also, Star Trek New Voyages is a new series that is internet-based. It's filmed in upstate New York, and they just recently wrapped their 4th episode, which featured George Takei reprising his role as Sulu. I think this is the future of Star Trek fandom. When we are at the point technologically where fans can actually come together and create their own series that compares favorably to anything that Paramount has put out. I think that you're going to see a lot more than that, especially given the fact that most fans have become disenchanted and disappointed with most of what Paramount has been putting out in the last several years. So Star Trek New Voyages is a free download from the internet, and it's definitely worth looking into.
Okay, well, time is almost infinite, but not for us, unfortunately. I would thank you in Klingon, but of course in Klingon there is no word for thank you. But Eric Watts, thank you for joining us.
Live long and prosper.
And you. You're watching CNN Today. We'll be back with more in just a moment.